Good afternoon to all, and welcome again to Tell Me Over Coffee. Firstly, I really would want to excuse myself for our last guest. It was my problem for not having good internet, but that's already solved, as you can see. We will be going back with our guest of last Friday, Jack Zulo, on September 15th at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So let's proceed today. Our guest of today is a UK-based filmmaker with an unusual and varied career path. On leaving Durham University with a science degree and with vague ideas of being a teacher, he soon found himself touring as a keyboard player, appearing with several bands on stage, and in the studio on a couple of albums. Like most artists, he developed skills that allowed him to grow in the music industry, eventually giving up performing to become a freelance producer and studio engineer. This work saw him travel the world over the next decade, working on hundreds of albums. In 2001, he started a record label, HS Recordings. The label released 20 albums over the next 10 years, releasing some groundbreaking albums. During this time, he began composing soundtracks for films, TV, adverts, and video games. He stepped into a theater for the first time at the age of 33 when he was asked to compose the soundtrack for a play called Closer. This developed an instant love for theater and focused his energy into becoming a go-to composer for theater scores. During one production, he developed and co-wrote a play, Consequences. This was the first production he directed, completely by accident. The play became a critical and commercial success. After this, he was pursued to direct a new play, Hanging in There, a comedy about surviving testicular cancer. Again, another success story. The following years were very busy and fruitful for him, composing soundtracks, directing several plays, some documentaries, and corporate films. It was until 2014 that he decided to develop, direct, and produce the film version of Hanging in There with the original screenwriter Jeff Saunders. The film premiered in London in April 2017. Over the next couple of years, he directed several new short films as a way to explore ideas and develop techniques for what would become his next feature film, All Roads Lead to Home. This would see him put pen to paper for the first time as a screenwriter. Like many projects, COVID-19 postponed the planned start to shooting in 2020. So he continued to write and record the soundtrack with music collaborator Jason Hubbard and his lead actors, rediscovering his love of music in the process. 2021 finally came with good news, and he was able to start shooting All Roads Lead to Home, only to be halted once again by a positive COVID test for their lead actor. But thankfully, they are restarting in September. He finally hopes to finish the film in 2022. Darren Scott, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine. Yourself?
That's very nice. A nice introduction of my whole life in 3 minutes.
It is. But some guests tell me, "Oh my God, I didn't really remember I had done all these things." And it's so weird to hear them back again. Tell us, Darren, anyone in the industry inspired you?
What, from film or
In general? Well, no, more. We're talking about your film career. So yeah, let's stick to film.
Okay. Okay, well, if we talked about Consequences being my sort of first directing accidental.
Yeah.
I think what inspired me to want to write Consequences was watching a film by Paul John Anderson, Magnolia. And his use of Amy Mann's music. And and the cinematography and character study, I suddenly thought, wow, you could do something like this on the stage. And so I wrote these songs with these characters, purely inspired by that movie. So I think if there is one person who's inspired me to be a director, it was that director, and that particular film. Obviously, there's other directors like Stanley Kubrick. I've always loved his films, the way he will not limit himself by genre, which is something I definitely did with plays. I went from sort of like comedy to drama to horror to thriller to farce, and I've done that with my films. I guess John Carney, who wrote that wonderful sort of low budget film Once, again with lots of music in. It's a big influence for All Roads Lead to Home. So I guess those two or three would be, I'd say they were inspirations. I hope I haven't stolen too much from them, but
anyone in your family in this industry in any way?
No, not at all. Other than my wife, who's an actress. But my brothers and sisters aren't. My parents aren't. Or they're not even anything to do with music either. I think I surprised them with the music. They had no idea where that came from. And I think my dad says I'm very much like my dad, and he's a professor of science. So I think he said, I don't know where all this creativity comes from you. You know, we're very similar and very scientific in a very way, which I guess what helps the producing side, a very, very logical, very practical side to me is when I'm producing, but the creative side when I'm directing or writing, he has no idea where it comes from. And we can't find anybody in the family who can even play an instrument. So, yeah. So I think
going to that, since no one in your family, let's go now to the support, the support part of this industry. No one in your family is in the art is artistic in any way in this industry or in the music industry. And like you said, I mean, you I think you degreed in science, and your father is also in that field. When you decided after you degreed yourself and everything, you said, oh no, I'm going to go now for music. And, you know, I mean, who cares about what I did at the university? I'm going for music. What did your parents say?
Well, I mean, this started at school with my first band.
Okay.
I went to a very private school, high expectations of getting lots of qualifications, going to university, having a normal career path. So when I started to come home late and they go, where you been? And I went, band practice. Been writing some songs. I think that surprised them. And I think they just saw that as a fad. I think they were happy that I wasn't on the streets causing trouble.
Yeah.
I was at least focusing my energy into something because I was quite a restless person. But I think they thought it would be a fad, something that would just come and go, and I'd grow up and I'd go and get a proper job
as a teacher.
Be a teacher. Well, I don't think I wasn't originally going to be a teacher. I was going to be an oil prospector, where I did a geology degree, and the idea was I was going to go to Kuwait and the Middle East and search for oil. Strangely enough, I mean, it can't be further from my thoughts now, even from an ecological point of view, where my viewpoint is on that. And in 1990, with the first Gulf War, I literally made a decision there and then. I was not going to do that. I could see what was going to happen for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I changed my path immediately and said, well, I'll just go into teaching. But even then, I had really no ambitions into music or anything. Well, maybe I did. I just wasn't being honest with myself. So.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe, I mean, it's just because your parents always thought that your artistic path was going to fade somewhere around you getting your degree and just becoming an adult, and all of a sudden, okay, he's going to find a proper job and he's going to forget about all that nonsense about music. And then all of a sudden you say, well, hey guys, you know what? That degree is really nice, but I like music more. So
yeah, I also think you're young, you just do things for the love of it. You don't think in terms of making music to make money. You
yeah.
just want to make some great tunes. I mean, I thought I was writing some great tunes. If I listen to them now, I can't listen to them. I think they're awful and terrible. But at the time, we thought we were the best band in the world. And I think every teenager goes through that phase. And so you can't imagine wanting it to be anything more than not a hobby. It meant a lot to me. I spent every minute of my life doing it. So it was more than a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went from, you know, my friend said to me, let's be in a band. I went, okay, I don't play any instruments. And I don't know how to write lyrics. And I can't sing. And that was the start point of the band. And I ended up being the lead singer who wrote the songs and occasionally played some instruments. And I literally forced myself to learn keyboard and guitar and sort of sing.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, but that so maybe it was more than a hobby. Maybe I was just very determined. Maybe I thought this is a good outlet for, you know, I always thought I could sense that I wanted to do something. Now I realize it was me just wanting to be creative. But when you're a teenager, you don't necessarily know what that means. You just think there's something that I want to do, but I don't know what it is I want to do. And the moment I found music, and you know, I used to literally in lessons be writing lyrics, and then I couldn't wait to break time to go and find my friend Ben, who I was in the band with, and go, Ben, here's some lyrics. What do you think? And can we go up to the piano room now and just go and write the tune? You know, that was how it was. It's quite exciting, really.
Yeah, I mean, it looks exciting on your face as you are telling all of us how it was and how it all started. I mean, I really have a very big imagination, and I was just imagining you guys very young up on where the keyboard was, and you know, one playing and the other one just correcting the lyrics. Must have been a great time. Great memories that you do cherish, because I can see it by the smile when you're talking about it. It really was an important part of your life.
Yeah, and I think it's something that reflected definitely through my music. When I became a composer, I always found that the best moment of writing a score was sitting at a piano and getting that tune for the first time, and the goosebumps getting you when you just found a little melody or you found a tune. That was always, and still is always, the best moment for me. And I think it comes back to there, because Ben, who I did the band with initially, was an amazing keyboard player, better than I've ever been able to play. And so I'd go, Ben, I've got this vague tune, and it just literally played the most florid piano. And I'd go, wow. And it just sounded brilliant because he was brilliant. And then I would just watch him play. And I go, well, what's that? Oh, that's A. And what's that? That's C chord. And I would literally watch him and learn to play from watching him play. And then occasionally when he wasn't there first, I'd be sitting there just shaping out the chords and trying to work them out. And then when he'd come in, I go, do you like this? And he goes, oh, that's nice. And I go, you go and play it then. He goes, no, you carry on playing it. He was very good like that. And he encouraged me to play more. And I think, and then he just got better and better and better. But never as good as him.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, we are all each good in some things, and that's our the good thing about each one of us, is that we are good in one thing. And maybe, I mean, for instance, in my case, I'm good with languages. I love music. I have good ear. I can't play an instrument, but I have very good ear for music, and I would love to play the piano. I would love to play the violin. I love the viola. It's just, for me, it's just one of the most beautiful instruments that was created. I don't know, maybe it's because it's very sensual, because you have to just put it right in between your legs and things like that. It's just very nice.
But also maybe it's the tone of it as well. It's quite quite a guttural tone.
Mm.
Viola is, it's not deep, and it's not high pitched. It's just
Yeah.
around the middle A. So
Mhm.
it's kind of, if you're into chakras and stuff, it's kind
Yeah.
of
Right there.
right in the chest chakra.
Mhm.
Violas, the tone is around 440 hertz, and it's just it's
Yeah.
harmonic, and it resonates with the human body well. So it's something I was aware of when I was writing. That
Yeah.
used to write harmonies to certain frequencies, and certain
Mhm.
instruments did certain things to people. So
Plus, I think that each person has an instrument. Like I said, the
definitely.
instrument finds you. It's
Mm-hmm.
not you that finds the instrument. And I have always been very, very much attracted to viola. And it's in my bucket list. Even at my age, I'm still, ready to go get viola lessons. And there you go.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. See, that's gonna be I'm gonna write my letter to Santa Claus. So I can get it for Christmas. Okay. So, well, obviously, at the end, your parents did see you were serious about what you were doing, and the support was easy and going. And then, obviously, you met your wife, and your wife, she's in this industry. So, at home, actually, now at present time, the support is very easy. I mean, it's. I always say that in this industry, which is an uncertain industry, not only for actors, but for everyone who works in this industry, is a very uncertain industry, especially you're starting, or it hasn't been long that you've been in this industry. Obviously, I mean, we're not talking about Spielberg or Almodovar or or Penelope Cruz or all these people, but people like us. It's not an easy path. So family support is very, very important, because it's like I say, we are very conscious that it's not an easy path. It's not an everyday job that we have. And we don't know if we're going to be working that month or even that year. So if besides that, and despite of all that, you still have someone at home who is always bitching about you don't have a proper job, well, it makes it even more difficult. So I assume that your family has supported you from the very beginning.
Um, maybe not. I mean, my parents have never seen me on stage. Um, that said, um, when I started moving into theatre, I think that's where it changed. Um, I was doing a tour 15 years ago. We were doing Chekhov,
Mm-hmm.
not the comedy routines that people are used to. Although we tried to find the comedy in Chekhov, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and it was January, and it was really cold, and you couldn't find this place unless you really, really wanted to. And we were doing some Chekhov, and my dad turned up in the middle of this place, and I hadn't seen him for a while, and he'd never seen anything we'd done on the stage. That was interesting, and I think maybe he saw theatre as more acceptable, um, and maybe understood it a bit more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't, and he comes to most of the plays. I think he's been to all of my plays since. So and he came to the film premiere as well, and I think he really enjoyed that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and next week when we're shooting, I've persuaded him and my stepmom to come and be extras. So they're actually going to be in a scene in the movie.
Oh, they're going to have a great time.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know whether they know what they're getting themselves in for, because obviously film sets seem quite glamorous and high energy, and actually it's mostly in action. There's a
Yeah.
lot of activity and then an hour of inaction. Well, we're all working busily with lights and
Yeah.
setting up, and everyone's sitting around, and then it's like, right, let's go. And then it's about 3 or 4 minutes of that, and then it's okay, go and sit back again. So we'll see. I'm hoping they'll enjoy it as a positive experience. And
Yeah, they will. They will. Believe me, they will. I mean, all the people I've met my husband, whenever I can take him along with me in the shootings, he usually comes with me. And he doesn't, and he just comes to see, to watch, not even to play anything. He enjoys them. He really likes to see it from the other side, just to see the whole thing, how everything works on the other side. Because
Yeah.
here we're talking about actors, I mean, spectators, they see an actor's work, but doesn't see everything that's going on behind the camera. So
All the
if
smoke and mirrors that's going on. Yeah.
but then if you as a guest on a set are the one who is behind of everyone who is behind, you are behind everyone and you can just see the whole picture. It's even more exciting. I don't, at least that's how I see it. I mean, when I'm invited to attend to shoots, and I just find it so great just to see all these people working in front and the back. It's just, you know, I find it very, very exciting, and I love it. I just love it. So you've worked in theater
Mm-hmm.
and in film. Both are quite different. Which one do you enjoy the most?
See, that's like asking me if I like ice cream or chocolate more. That is, you know, you like both of them, but you like them in different ways, I guess. I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, I think okay. There's a process, a different process, and then there's a different sort of audience. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with theatre, I spend most of my time micro directing, deconstructing the script with my actors. I'm on a stage. At that point, I'm not even worrying about the set. I'm not worrying about costume. I'm not worrying about props, unless they're critical props. We're just trying to make every word count and trying to find the emotion in every word. And so I spend 90% of my time with my actors. And then I have teams that go and build my sets and sort my costumes out. We work them out over one meeting, and then 3 or 4 weeks down the line, they appear and we do it, and it's all perfect. And those elements usually come in really late. You know, you have your dress rehearsal, your technical dress rehearsal 3 or 4 days before, and that's when all the elements come in. But up to that point, it's you and the actors virtually all of the time. With film, the process is completely different, in so much that you're micro-directing, micromanaging everything but the actors. So you're, you know, every costume is important, and in my case, the costumes, the colors, the tones tell a story. Every prop has to be thought out. Every set has to be real. Every lens, every camera, every light. The amount of things you have to think of is so much more, and that takes up 90% of your time. And then if you're lucky, you get a tiny amount of time with your actors to suddenly go, right, go, let's go. So I suppose it's where I'm spending my energy. With theatre, it's with actors. With film, it's with everything but the actors. Although I like to do rehearsals with my actors before we get on set, because I know time is precious. So I suppose there's the differences, and I like both of them. I love working with actors, but I also like the technical aspect of it. If we look at the audience, I suppose it's completely different. I absolutely love opening night, sitting in the middle of a theatre with an audience. Often they don't know who I am, and I can completely enjoy their reaction to my play more than I can enjoy the play. I can sit there and go, oh, you know, we put that joke in to get, yeah, they get it. Or the next night, you can have a completely different audience, and they'll see different things in your play. And you can watch the same play 10 nights running, and the actors, their emotions, how they're feeling, whether they're a good day, a bad day, whether they had something they didn't like to eat at lunch, all these things play into their performances. After 5 days, they get relaxed and they do their own thing on stage, and you have to go in there and pull them in. And, you know, so your experience of theatre is completely different every time. And I love seeing the audience reaction, and you can do that in theatre. With film, you can sit in a cinema, but it's not easy to see people's reactions so much. It's you can sit in front of a TV with them. I think the problem with an audience for TV and film, for instance, or watching your film on a TV or in a cinema, is that they're instantly conditioned to compare it to something else. And whereas with theatre, I can take a completely bare stage and put on Shakespeare, and that could be the best bit of Shakespeare you've ever got, because the stage doesn't matter. It's the word and how we project the emotion of the word. I could take 6 amateurs and make them do world-class Shakespeare. There is no leveler, you know.
Yeah.
With film, if you don't have the right lenses on the right camera, you're instantly going to look so much poorer product than the Marvel film that's just come out.
Yeah.
Or Spielberg's latest one. Or they'll compare you to Kubrick or whatever, who have millions of pounds and hundreds of people to do what you're trying to achieve as well, with, you know, a lot less money and a handful of people and your friends. So I think it's very easy for people to be very critical and go, well, that was all right. It's not as good as Marvel. Well, of course it's not. But I think that's the difference. I don't enjoy sitting with an audience watching my films, because people are already, you can sense they're comparing. They're looking at the technicals, the color, the lighting, and so on. It's not a fair fight. But with theatre, I think it is. And I don't know. I think theatre will always have a real pull to me. It's where I started. I think
it's not only for that. Film and TV, we could say, wouldn't be film and TV if it weren't for theater, because all this creativity of telling a story started on a stage.
Yeah.
So
Greece, you know,
without that, all we're talking about now about film, that wouldn't exist. So it does have, it's just like, it's the mother of telling a story, and it is important. That's what I always say. I'm more of a film and TV person than a theater actress, but I do always say to the newbies that you do have to have some theater. It's a base. It's a base to acting. It's a base to understanding what acting is about, what telling a story is about, what sharing experience while you are acting with someone else is all about. It's all about listening. It's about not even saying a word, because we have our egos, and if we're not saying if we don't have a sentence or whatever, it's just, oh my God, my role is nothing. No, you're wrong. Sometimes you say nothing and you may be in a scene for about 10 minutes without saying a word, but you are acting, and it's much more powerful than all the words you could say. So some people don't understand that. But little by little, people start to see, especially spectators. This is what I'm really happy about, is that they are getting into understanding all these things. So it's easier afterwards when you explain what your story is about, what made you take your story to the point where it is. They start understanding all that about, the creator who is the director, right? Composing, screenwriting, producing, or directing. Okay. Which one is your favorite and why?
See, now this is now like you asking me, which one of my children do I like best?
Which one do you love most? Okay, well.
Yeah. We don't have favorites.
You don't have favorites. You don't have favorites, but you do get along better with one or the other.
Yeah, in different ways. Ways. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's hard because, all right, for a large portion of my life, composing was all I wanted to do. It's all I felt. I would dream tunes. I would hear tunes. I would be on a train or plane and I'd hear a tune and have to want to write it straight away. It literally was like the blood running through my veins. It was for a while, it was the only way that I could express my feelings and my emotions. So it was quite important at the time. But when I seemed to feel as though I'd got to the limit of my ability, suddenly it stopped. I stopped feeling it.
Okay.
I got to a point. I got to a point where I'm trying to say this right. I got to a point where I felt as though I was making music by numbers. You know, that you say painting by numbers, right? We see the numbers, we put a red here, and we put a yellow here, and we put a blue here. That's how I was writing music. I literally would sit at a piano and go, my favorite bit was go, where's the tune? How am I going to get into this score? How am I going to get into this play? What is the leitmotif? What is my character? What instrumentation am I going to use? What themes are going to be used? What genre am I going to do? Because I wrote in lots of genres with lots of instruments. And once I'd worked that out and worked the tune out and worked out my motifs, that was the fun bit over. That was the 5-10% of the work done. And then it was what I'd call the screwdriver work, which is where you'd have to go and record it and flesh it out and time it and all that sort of stuff. And I felt as though I could do that in a very technical way. This is where the scientific brain of mine came in. And I could churn these scores out really easily without really thinking about it. The creative bit was just in the pure instant writing. And once it was written, it became a technical process. And I fell out of love with the technical process. I just felt, it became, every score just felt the same. I did go through techniques whereby I'd go into the studio at the beginning of every score and I'd move everything around to try and force me to work differently. I'd put a keyboard here and I'd move it around, because what I found myself doing is going to the same keyboard, writing the same way with the same instrumentation, because I know I could do this in 3 or 4 days really quickly. And I thought, where's the challenge? You need to challenge yourself. You need to push yourself. So I used to move everything around and go, I'm not going to use the keyboard here. I'm just going to use a guitar. Okay, get the guitar out and learn it again. Or, or use the glockenspiel or something. Or I'm just going to use percussion. So I'd start putting limitations on myself in order to be more creative. And then I felt as though I was contriving my music. So I really decided, I woke up one day, 2014, and went, no more. I'm not going to do any more. I realized that I was just doing it and not feeling it.
Okay.
So I think largely that part of my life is over. There's a piano in my lounge. I probably played it about 10 times in 5 years. I did walk past it. Before I used to have to play something when I walked past it, and now I never do. A caveat to that is that obviously when it came to do the music for the movie, I found a great collaborator, Jason Havard, and found that collaborating with him, whereas previously I'd written everything on my own. I'd spent 20 years writing on my own, playing everything myself, and maybe that's why I fell out of love with it. But the collaboration with him and I dusted down the studio and opened the doors for the first time in 3 years. And we went in there and we wrote a load of songs, and then got into the studio with other guys and other musicians. My daughter does play a trumpet, so she came in and the actors came in and sing. I absolutely adored that process. So much so that after this movie, Jason and I will write some songs for love. Like back at school, no pressure, not to make an album, not to make any money. We're just going to sit together and just record some stuff again because we love the process so much. So there's that element. Yep. Pull it back to your question. Screenwriting, I've only done it once, really. I did co-write Consequences, the play. And I did write a short film as preparation for writing the screenplay. But boy, it's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Perhaps writing it is the easy bit. the rewriting and the redrafting and making it better is the hard thing.
It's a never-ending story.
Yep, I'm currently on
You have to
draft.
force yourself to stop and to finish it, because otherwise you're just going on and on changing things, and you never finish. So you do have to force yourself. Yeah, I have a friend, filmmaker, who says that when he's on version, I think it's about version 10, he says that's it. If you come to 10, you have to finish it. Otherwise, just put it in the drawer and leave it in the drawer.
Yeah, we started shooting version 11.
Wow.
That was my shooting script, was 11. We're on 14B. I'm doing a Kubrick. I'm rewriting as we're shooting.
Oh.
Partly because of COVID. We found that in the first block of filming. I know we're coming away from the question, but in the first block of filming, with all the COVID protocols, filming went from being sort of 8-hour days to 14, 15-hour days. And the consequence was we lost scenes. We just ran out of time. So I was having to rewrite scenes on set to lose stuff.
Oh.
So, and then when we come into rehearsals for each block of filming, the actors going, oh, wouldn't it be good if we did this? And I feel it this way. And I've worked quite collaboratively with the actors to make the dialogue feel quite real. So most of the versions are not changes to the script and the plot, but changes to the dialogue. We've just found a better pattern for dialogue. The actors are getting into the characters more. So, but we're at 14B.
Wow. Well, I'm wishing you luck. You don't change anything anymore, because I mean, sometimes I do understand the creativity of the director or the screenwriter, but last minute things for an actor to say, oh, I just changed this. It's just like saying, well, thank you. I love you too. And I have to memorize all this shit because you changed your mind and I already knew the other stuff. So, sometimes it's not a good thing and a good favor you're doing this. But, well, it's like I say, there's a saying in Spain that says, when there's a captain, there are no sailors. So.
Yeah, and the thing is that if I'm going to make a script change, dialogue-wise, I always do it with the actor. I go, look, this is the change I want to make. This is why I want to make it. I actually say to every actor that has come on board this thing, go through the script. If there's something you want changing or something you feel you could do in a better way, I'm not claiming to be a screenwriter. I've just happened to write this because there was no one else to write it. Okay, this is a very personal story for me. I've written it, but it's not a masterpiece. I mean, I don't think it is. Everybody's on board mainly because of the script. So it can't be bad. But I have been very unprecious about it because I don't feel as though, if I was a master screenwriter, like Charlie Kaufman or someone like that, if Charlie Kaufman writes it, we'll direct it and we'll act it. But I've always gone, well, this script is a fluid, collaborative thing. If we can find a better way of saying something or a better way of doing things, and a lot of our work with the actors in rehearsal is, do we need to say this? Can we get rid of this? And most of the time, we're cutting dialogue. The actors go, I can say this with a look. I can say this with emotion. I can say this with an action. And I'm going, brilliant. So we keep cutting dialogue. Cut all the time.
Be careful, it doesn't become a short film if you keep on cutting.
Yeah. But it's I'm showing rather than telling. There's virtually no backstory. I decided that I wasn't going to put any backstory in. The actors can find that. I've always said that in theatre. When you get a theatre play, there is no backstory. You don't get given a clue often to the characters. And the characters like to say, "Oh, can we hot seat and can we discuss our characters?" And I'm going, fine, but I'm not going to be involved. I don't need to know what you think your character is. I just need you to bring whatever backstory you've brought to the history of your character, bring it to rehearsals, and I'll tell you whether you're right or wrong on how. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's an actor's job, not a director's job. Obviously, if an actor goes to me, well, what about my parents? I'm going, well, what do you think? what bit of my script makes you think this about their parents?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question is it relevant? Is it going to make your performance better? Because that's all I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
If you think it is and I can see a difference, let's go with it. If it doesn't make any difference, let's not waste time on it.
Okay.
But if you want a conversation about it, we'll do it. And I took that from theatre, and I direct the same in theatre as I do in film.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about acting?
I was trying to think of something you said earlier about what was it about? Oh yes, I know what it was. So when you said about how an actor can say a lot without saying much, I have acted once in my life, and it was I didn't want to do it. So I'm going back to our Chekhov tour, and we did all these pieces. And because I'm not a fan of scene changes in theatre because they take too long, 3 minutes, and you lose your audience, they suddenly go, oh, we got 2 minutes to chat while they do a scene change, and you lose your audience. And so my scene changes are always really quick, or they're a light change, or I just don't give the audience time to switch off, keep them in the moment. So we're on this Chekhov tour, and we're like, we got 1 minute scene changes, 2 minute scene changes. I went, right, what we're going to do is we're going to make the scene changes part of the play. So we'll get some Russian balalaika music, and we'll do it slapstick. We'll move the furniture in character, like removal men, stage hands, and we'll make it funny. We'll make the chairs fall off. We'll move the things in a funny way and just make it part of the show. Right? Bit of comedy dell'arte. We'll just make it part of the show. And it was brilliant. It worked fine, but it required the speed to left and a stage right, stage left exit. So we get to this one place, and there's only one way into the stage left. So we immediately know that our ins and outs are going to take twice as long. So the captain of the company, Michael, he goes, so Darren, because I was kind of like the producer. I was doing the sound and the lights, but I was doing it from the side of the stage. And because you could see me, because these were very intimate places, I was in kind of like a grey military Russian trench coat, and I had a big hat on. So I looked like a Russian kind of from the White Revolution or something like that. And if anybody asked, I just said Boris was my name, and I just said Yet and Da. I only said 2 words to anybody all night. So I was in a character already, but it was mainly just that people leave me alone and not talk to me. So Mike goes, right, what's going to have to happen is Boris is going to have to go on the stage and distract them. And I went, no way, I'm not getting up on stage. And he goes, well, we need to do something. Just go up there, tell them one of your famous stories in your Russian accent. Just keep them interested. We'll move all this furniture behind you, and it'll be fine. So I'm sitting there thinking, what story am I going to tell? Because we only found this out like half hour before we were going up, so I had no time to prepare. And I thought, I've never been on stage. I've never wanted to be on stage. I don't want to do this. But for the company, you have to do it. I'll go up there and do it. So we start the show. I'm focusing on lights. And then suddenly I'm thinking, I've got to get up there now and do something. And I'd completely forgotten to think about what I was going to do. So I just stood up onto the stage right in the middle. The music's going. They're moving furniture. And I look up, and I didn't realize how bright the stage is. I've always put the lights up, but I've never really stood on the stage and seen, like, they are like the rabbit in the headlight. It really is like headlights in your face. And I put my hands up to say something, and I got stage fright. I literally froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just went into panic, and so I'm like this, about to speak. They're all moving around, and the audience are going, they were waiting for me to do something. They were thinking, there's something going to happen. Something's going to happen. So you hear one person start laughing because there's a nervousness in the audience because they're waiting for something to happen. And then, of course, I'm not doing anything. I'm just not moving. So laughter and more laughter and more laughter and more laughter, and then they're just, the whole audience is just laughing their head off. And to me, it felt like 2 hours. It was about 2 minutes. And then Michael goes, Boris, get off the stage. They'd moved all the furniture and they just pushed me off the stage, sort of thing. And there was a standing ovation, right? A round of applause from everybody. They thought it was part of the act. I was just mortified. I thought, what have you done? And we get to the end of the show, and I'm sort of hiding myself away. And the actors go up for the bow. And the audience start going, Boris, Boris, get Boris up. They wanted me to go up there and take my bow. And I felt a fraud, total fraud. And of course, the actors loved it. They thought it was really funny and stuff. And they were going, you've got to do this every night now. And I'm going, no way, absolutely no way. I didn't ever do it again. That's my one and only time on stage. And no.
Well, without wanting, you were brilliant. You were brilliant without even wanting it. I mean, you created a character who was just there, standing with his finger up and just didn't move. And what that made the spectators, all the audience, be part of that. Each person in their own head was thinking what he's going to say now or what he's going to do. And then obviously this it's just a contagious thing. When one person laughs, I mean, you laugh at the person without knowing why the person is laughing. And it just goes on and it goes on. So you did create a character without knowing it. I mean, it's just like I don't know if you ever seen one of these shows of America's Got Talent, and there was this guy that he came out and they said, "What are you gonna do?" And then he just said he was gonna sing. So, okay, and there was this huge screen, and he was going to be karaoke, and it was, guess what song he chose? Tequila. That's the only time he would say something because it was instrumental, and then it's tequila.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. No one was expecting that. He would just be there and turn around while the music was going on, and all of a sudden, tequila. That's when he would say tequila, and that's it. No one ever thought of that. And you did the same thing. You just froze. Yeah. Unfortunately, you didn't do it on purpose, obviously. You just froze, and you just stood there, and they all thought you did it on purpose. That was your character. I just think it was brilliant. You did keep the people busy while everyone else was doing their job and moving everything around. So I think you really did a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think if I'd have done it every night, it would have been contrived. Because in a sense,
the same thing. You would have done something else. You would have, little by little added something to that character. And, at the end, obviously, I mean, at the end, it would just be you sitting on stage and just asking questions to the people. That's maybe another way too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe when I sat there and thought about it, it was a perfect moment. And I thought, if I'm ever gonna remember a moment on stage, the sheer terror, but then the reaction, the chances are I would never get a reaction like that again, because whatever I did next would be feel too contrived, whereas it was completely spontaneous and it's a bit like finding that perfect moment in the tune. Mm-hmm. You only find it once, and after that, it doesn't matter how many times I play that tune, it's never as good as the first time you play it.
True.
And maybe it was like that. Maybe that's it. I'm just looking for perfect moments once, and that's it, and then I have to move on to the next thing. Maybe that's why I've been restless and keep changing my life all the time.
I think that's your scientific side of the brain, the perfectionism. And when we are artists, we're not perfect because we are creative, and there's no perfection in creativity. So.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I was far too much of a perfectionist, say 10, 15 years ago. And I think when I got into theatre, I thought my first play, because obviously I was an accidental director. I literally had this brilliant idea. I found a couple of guys, Helen and Roger, these screenwriters, to write this play with me. We all basically wrote these random characters. Mm-hmm. monologues, and then I put it together with a play, and then I put some songs in, and then I presented it to the theatre, and I went, got this great idea, and it's specifically for this space. They had a studio, and I said, you just need to find a director now. And he goes, oh, we found one. I went, brilliant. Who's going to do it? He goes, you're going to do it. And I went, why? He goes, well, it's your idea, and you know what you want to do, and you've just explained to me how you do it, so just do it. And I went, but I have no idea how to direct. And he goes, oh, that's fine. I'll come in for the first couple of rehearsals, and I'll help you organize it, and just get on with it. And thankfully, he helped me find an amazing cast. There was quite a lot of directors in the cast, but also there were very good actors, and they were so gracious, because I keep saying it, I felt a fraud. I felt, I'm not a director, I'm not a screenwriter, and they were so good, and we put this play on, and it did end up how I'd imagined it. I do remember about a week before we went up, we'd never actually run the play. And because it was a brand new piece, we had all these monologues, and we'd rehearsed everybody separately because they're just monologues. I didn't need everybody there every night. So I'd do one character, we'd do all their monologues one night. And then I'd put everybody together. So, right, we're going to run it. And it went on for 3 hours. And I was like, wow, this is way too long. So a week before we went up, I remember going to the actors. I went, we're going to do something completely different. And he goes, what? I says, we're going to unlearn this play. And we were going through their monologues, taking out sections, lines. And that, I think that must have been, you talk about actors adding lines or changing lines. We were taking whole sections or lines from these monologues, and they were having to relearn or unlearn stuff. And we got it from 3 hours down to 2 hours, 2 1-hour plays. That in 1 week, I was in awe. Now, especially as a director, I was in awe of those actors who could unlearn stuff and keep it down to a sensible amount of time. But all the way through there, I still had no pretension to be a director. I remember getting to the end of it, and we had full houses, and it was really well received, and the reviews were like 9 out of 10, 4 or 5 stars. They were very good reviews, saying we should see more new writing like this. And because my strength was my music and my songs, and of course I put that as an integral part. The actors would be talking and then suddenly start singing like a musical, like Magnolia. There's that brilliant section in Magnolia where all the characters are brought together through that, that Amy Mann song, and Give Up, the song Give Up, and they all sing, and then they all brought together. And that's what inspired me to do this with these monologues, and then they start singing. And it was very successful, but at the end of it, I went, I'm never directing again. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt completely out of my depth. I'll stick to composing. And then about a year later, the artistic director came up to me and goes, got a new piece of writing, and you're good with new writing. I went, okay. He goes, I'd like you to direct a play called Hanging in There. And I said to him, I said, well, how many people have you asked? And he goes, 5. I said, so I'm the 6th person. And he says, it's worse than that. They've asked about 4 theatres and couldn't get it put on. So I said, so you're the 5th theatre they've asked, and I'm the 6th director you've asked, or something like that. I said, this doesn't sound good. And I said, I don't want to direct. I've got no interest. I don't know what I was doing, and I didn't enjoy the process so much. And he goes, oh, I think it'll be perfect. And I went, oh, okay. He said, why don't you talk to Jeff Saunders, the writer? It's his story of how he survived testicular cancer. And I thought, well, I don't really want to do this. No one wants to hear about this on stage. Anyway, Jeff and I were in the pub, and we had a beer, and he goes, so why won't you do it? And I went, oh, well, I don't know how to direct. He goes, well, Consequences was good. And maybe the fact that you're not trying too hard to direct, maybe that's exactly what we need for this play. It's a real story. Just be honest and real about it. That ended up being the best bit of advice, because that's how I direct. to this day, I learned my craft by just finding the humanity in the characters. All I do is I act like partly social worker, partly psychologist. Maybe this is the science in me again, is that I approach it from a human psychology thing. And I speak to my actors as people, and I find tricks and psychological games to get them to reach where they need to go. And as I've done more plays and more films, I think I instantly can read actors and know exactly which buttons I need to press to get them to do whatever I need to do. I mean, when I started off in my first film, for instance, is an example. In my first film, we were shooting at 3 a.m. in a pub, and one of my characters is an alpha male character, and the other one's quite a soft, gentle character. So I had independent conversations with each of the actors because they have this kind of head-to-head. And I said to the alpha male character, the actor, I went, I want you to go for him. Just absolutely destroy him. Just really go for him. Really brutal. Don't stop. Just go for him. Don't consider him. He goes, you sure about this? You know, because he was more experienced than the other guy. He goes, you sure about this? I went, yeah, it's fine. It's all right. I've told him. It's fine. Just go for it. And I went to the other guy and I went, so I just need you to just listen to everything he says. All right. Just listen. And he goes, okay. So of course, I just said to the camera guys, I went, we've only got one go at this. One shot, one go at it. I said, because the next time it will not be like this. And we only did it once. And it was brutal. And the other guy was almost broken at the end of it. And I had to go and say, look, I'm really sorry. I should have told you. But if I'd have told you, you'd have been all defensive. You'd have been ready and primed from it. And I needed this character to be broken at the end of it. And you'd have just prepared yourself too much.
Yeah.
And I said to the other guy, I said, I'm sorry I told you to do this, you know, but you'd have held back. Your friends, you'd have held back. So sometimes you have to lie a little bit for the greater good. It's a psychological game, I think, and I think that's how I direct.
It is. It is. Well, at least that's felt. I'm hearing myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were just cracking up a little bit, but it seems okay now, I think.
It's just that I hear myself. Okay, now I don't. Meryl Streep, she wanted to, since she had to more or less be very harsh and very hateful with her co-actors, and well, she decided not to be a part of any of the meetings or reunions, lunch reunions, or she just wanted to be kept aside, and so she could always be in character. And she said it was her worst experience. That was, using the method. She said that she would never use that again. Anne Hathaway, which was the first time she met Meryl Streep, she thought that she had said or done something because
is this Devil's Wear Prada?
Yeah, because Meryl Streep wasn't talking to her or whatever, and she was, she was all, did I do something or did I say something that she didn't like? Because I mean, I see her, we just cross when we go for costume or whatever. She doesn't even say hi or whatever, and I don't know. And it's just, and she did say this in an interview that it was the first time she was using the method, and she said that never ever again, because it was the worst shooting period that she had, because obviously she wasn't, everyone else was having fun after they would finish the shooting day and let's go grab some drinks or whatever. She would be aside. She didn't want anything to do with that because she wanted to be in character all the time.
But it worked. It was a great, iconic performance.
It did. But I think she would have done it the same way anyways, because she does have that, how would you say it in English? In Spanish,
like an aloofness. There's a certain aura
Yeah, I mean, it would have come out anyways, even if she did interact with everyone else behind the scenes. But it's just that she wanted to do it, the very harsh way, and she said, "Okay, let me use the method here." And she said, "No, never again am I going to use the method ever, ever." She said because she while everyone else was having fun and having drinks and this and that, I was just being miserable in my own little place. And she said it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, but
So,
maybe it was good for her though to at least have done it once, because then
oh yeah,
she
definitely.
may have found something in that thought, well, actually, this is the way I want to act,
Yeah.
or at least now she could say, well, this is the way I don't want to act.
That's that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you have to learn. I mean,
Oh,
on
you
my
have to
first,
try different things, obviously. I mean, it's very, I always say it's very hard to compare when you're not trying different things. You can't
yeah,
compare. So when you write a story, um, are your characters faceless, or do you write according to the actors that you would like to perform those characters?
okay, well, I guess I've only written once. So if I take the example of All Roads Lead to Home,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was very much based on true events when I started out in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
So um, the characters, the supporting characters, are all based on real people
Okay.
with real personalities
Mm-hmm.
um, and characterisms. The two lead actors, um, well, the four lead actors are all versions of me, good and bad. They're all flawed characters, so they're all different versions of me. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I wrote the personalities of characterisms either based on me or based on real people.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to dialogue, where you want them to have a very distinct voice,
Mm-hmm.
um, then I started to think about the actors. So a lot of the rewrites were done because of the certain pattern of
Mm-hmm.
speech of the actors. Um, so one of my characters was Scottish, so she had a certain pattern to her voice. So some of the Beck's lines were rewritten because I could hear her say them, and she would say them in a different way to how I'd written them. So they got rewritten for her patterns. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's it. I think personality and character comes from real people. In this
Okay.
case, but the dialogue came from the actors, and a lot of the rewrites were done
Mm-hmm.
with how the actors would say it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the characters was based on my nan, so she was written completely how my nan would have said the lines. That the lines she says are lines that she said.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a mixture. I
Mm-hmm.
can't say because I've only written one thing. That said, I am writing two other screenplays at the moment, and I'm finding that perhaps the experience of that means I have certain actors in mind for the next films, and so maybe I'm writing the dialogue particularly with their voices in mind. It does
Okay.
help to have a voice in your head when you're writing dialogue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Let's go now into I know deeper questions that some guests don't like, but I love to ask these. So, as
I'm
you,
scared.
yeah. Well, I mean, you can answer or not. Feel free not to answer if you don't want to. But as you know, we do live in a multicultural, multi-religious, and multi-ethnicity world in this industry. Would you say that we all have the same opportunities um, as a result of our background, or um, let's say, would you say that white people have more opportunities than um, people of color or Latinos or Arabs, Muslims in general? I don't know. What would
that,
you say?
that's a heavy question.
It is. It is. I'm sorry, but it is. But it's real, and this is a day to day thing.
Okay, so the easy answer is no. I don't think it's equal, right? I don't think the equal opportunities. But I think the answer isn't easy to answer because it's probably largely historical. Yeah, I think like I think a lot of our drama schools are very kind of would have appealed to, say, white middle class students from perhaps good backgrounds where they'd had drama lessons, gone to good schools, and then gone to drama school because of the cost involved. I think that's historical. I think they would have perhaps felt they would have perhaps gone to theatres and then found a love of theatres and then found an acceptance in theatre because they're very white middle class establishments. Even now they are. So I would imagine if you'd come from a black background or an underprivileged background, you would perhaps not feel welcome in those environments, or you'd not, you know what I mean? So maybe that's historically where it is. And I think in theatre it is still the case. I think in film it's let's say I think there are a lot of filmmakers, myself included, who are trying to do the right thing. Whether our achievements are good enough and whether there's enough of us doing a good enough job of it will perhaps not become apparent for, say, 5 or 10 years. This isn't something that's going to be solved overnight by giving more opportunity. It needs sustained opportunity for a long time. If you think that theatre's thousands of years old and established theatre and film is 100 years old, you're not going to solve this problem overnight just because you give some black actors a bit more opportunity to get into drama school. It's going to take some really successful black actors to be role models, to encourage black actors to go, I want to be like them. So I will go to drama school, or I will go to the theatre, or I'll follow this, or I'll go into this film and I'll have a go.
But I think, Darren, that change takes only one person to start off with.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, I got them.
One person. All the changes that have been made in this world, in whatever industry, has started with one person and that person's idea. And like we could say, and other crazy people following the person to do this. But it took one person and that person's idea. What I mean, for instance, at times is that we take it for granted that any white person can do any character. Can be a doctor, can be a policeman, it can be a prime minister, it can be a president, it could be a king, it could be anything. That or she could be anything. But when it comes to other nationalities, more than nationality, other ethnicities, well, for instance, Latinos, the men they usually portray gangs of Latino gangs and things like that. The women, they tend to do maids or prostitutes. When we go to Russians, guys are always in the mafia or Gestapo, and the actresses, they always portray prostitute characters. And Arabs and Muslims in general, they always portray terrorists. And why cannot we take it for granted that an Arab actor can be, I don't know, a judge or president of a country or a CEO of a company or a pharmacist or a doctor, a nurse, a father? I don't know. Why? Why not? Why? Whereas with white actors and actresses, it's normal. I mean, we already see that person that way, and we don't do roles as white people.
But I think, isn't this about stereotyping? Is that is that anybody that's different, we've always stereotyped.
Yeah.
You've even stereotyped, say, in the UK between the Irish, especially in the 70s and the 80s, were kind of terrorists because the IRA.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of filmmaking is lazy filmmaking in that it uses stereotypes to shortcut story, to shortcut character. Instead of writing good character, they use stereotypes. You want a baddie? Make him Russian. You want a gang? Make him Latino.
Yeah.
And it's just, we instantly go, okay, we've seen that 100 times before. We know where we are. That's fine. And I think we don't intentionally be racist because of it. However, being stereotyped is a form of racism. And I think filmmakers are lazy.
Yeah.
Because they've got 90 minutes to make a story happen and they haven't got time to write backstory.
No, you're right. They're lazy and they're looking for the easy way to do things.
But also the audience aren't prepared to you've got to get over your audience, and they've got their own prejudices as well. And you can't legislate for that. I'm not saying it's right. I just think that's why it happens. I mean, I was asked to do an interview with a Muslim actor if I had any in my film, and it was specifically about how they felt about their character in the film and so on. I felt partly that the journalist was trying to set me up a little bit, but I would have done it. But what I had to say to him was honestly is, I don't know if any of my cast are Muslims because it didn't matter to me. Now, maybe that's the wrong answer, but what I was trying to say is if the religion had mattered for their character, then I would have found out. But what I was after were actors to come and play my parts, which were non-religious. So I didn't question that aspect of them. I questioned whether they could play this part or this part, whether they could find the emotion in the words to play the part. So I said, I don't actually even know if any of my actors are, because it's not been relevant to my relationship with them as a director versus an actor. And none of their characters were Muslim. Therefore, I hadn't specifically gone and cast a Muslim.
Yeah. Because you were casting an actor.
I was casting an actor, the best actor I could find.
You were not casting a religion. You were not casting an origin. You were casting an actor for a character. And it's like I say, characters, unless the story that is being told has something to do with culture, ethnicity, or religion, characters are non-religious. They know nothing about politics. They know nothing about gender preferences, etc. It's just a character that is telling a story. So I do agree with you in that. But for instance, these things they also happen between actors and actresses. The other day I read something that Whoopi Goldberg said when she said that an actress can only play female roles. She is an actor. She can play any role. And I agree with that. But unfortunately, if you go on through the history of film, TV, just film in general, I would maybe say 80% of the films have more male actors than female actors. And so do you think we are still living in a man's world?
Okay, short answer, yes.
Who's me?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm going to bring this back again to my experience.
Yeah.
What I'm doing, and obviously I've only written one screenplay, but I decided that I wanted to have at least 50% diverse cast, and I wanted 50% male-female ratio.
Great.
Right. and I put myself to those limits. Now, whether I've achieved that or not, I don't know. I also took it to my crew. I absolutely wanted at least 50% of my crew to be female. I'm 60 or 70% female crew. So I've achieved that. And when I was writing my characters, and this is what it comes down to, is still a predominant number of writers are male. And I think they write from a male perspective. And a lot of good writers can't write females. They can't write well for women.
Yeah.
And I worked quite hard, and I worked with my actors to get that right voice. I also decided, so I would say that all of the female characters, even the antagonists, are strong characters. But I also didn't make them superheroes. I thought it was important that I gave them all flaws. So all the males had positives and flaws, and all the females had positive flaws, because I wanted them to feel real. Maybe because the two lead girls and the two male leads were all versions of me. Maybe that helped. But Pink, for instance, is based on my nan, and she's one of the strongest characters in the movie. And I think so many actors went, when they've read the script, they went, I wish I had an aunt or a nan like her, with all the advice that she has. So that was an easy write. But I think it just comes from a desire to want to write different voices. But I could see how in my film I could do that. But I still had to plot it so that these characters were there.
Okay.
I'd say in an action movie like a Tom Cruise, his females are always the supporting hangers on.
Yeah.
They're always 20 years younger than him. Why is that? You know?
Yeah.
But also, I think the problem is also in theatre. It's like my wife's at a certain age whereby she's slightly older for the younger roles, so she doesn't get cast for the younger roles. But
she's too young for the older roles. But
then the roles start at 50, and she's too young for them, so she doesn't play the sort of the mothers and the Lady Macbeths and all these, the grand, you know. So she's in this kind of like hole where there's just no roles written in theatre for her, and that's historically. And I think film is the same. If you look at all the up and coming actors, they're all young and energetic. You know, they always say that film is a young person's.
But there again, there is a problem, like you say, that comes through the years, through history, through all the way we were brought. Because, for instance, you will find it's easier to find, for instance, a male character who is around 60 years old, okay, and his co-actress, she's 25 or 30.
Yeah,
that's normal. Now you don't see it the other way around. That the lead actress, she's about 60 years old, and the guy is about 30. No, that's not normal. So, you know, it's just like a joke that they said, you see a guy with an old guy with a very young girl, and you say, well, and there's the question is, what difference of age do you think there is? And she says, and the other one says, well, it depends on the money he has. So that's the whole thing. But
we're down to stereotyping again, though, aren't we?
It's again stereotyping, like you say, because it's for instance here in Spain, you're talking about your wife's age. In my case, I can't be considered a mother of a teenager because I'm 57, and they consider that to be the mother of a teenager, you know, at least you have to be in your late 40s, but not your late 50s. But I'm still too young to be a grandmother. So it's like I say, because we stereotype, but because were not really following reality.
Mhm.
Nowadays, uh, it is easy to find a mother who is 57, who had her first child, at the age of 47, because she was the CEO of this multinational, and she couldn't bear to have children before because she was too busy working. And now she can. So she had a child 10 years ago. Why not? I mean, scientifically, it's possible. That's
It's-
one thing. Secondly, in my particular case, I could perfectly be a grandmother because my granddaughter, she's 13 years old.
I'm a grandfather.
Well, that's the point. The grannies and the granddads today, they're not the typical very old people, or they like here in Spain, they like to see the grandma. She's a very small, she's chubby, and she has white bun.
Okay,
No. Why?
stereotype.
Yes, stereotypes. So I think that what you do and what other filmmakers like yourself, being men or women, what you're doing is great because you are breaking all these stereotypes and bringing change.
But it's
Because it's
because it comes down to what I was saying about the way I direct. I want it to be real. I want the acting to be real and the characters to be real. I want the dialogue to be real. And I don't know. I mean, it would have been so easy to have my lead actors to be 25
yeah.
or 23, 24, 20, which is what most films would have done.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted my characters to have lived. At 25, I hadn't lived. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I was going. For my film to work, for these actors to realize what they'd done was not enough for them.
True.
For them to make a change, fundamental change to their lives, they had to have lived. So I made them early to mid 35, which is a really unusual age. I mean, that's all my leads were that age. And most of the supporting actors are 50, 60. I've got a 79-year-old. I've deliberately gone up because there are plenty of films out there for your 18-year-olds coming out of drama school.
Yeah.
Plenty of them. 90% of them are. But there aren't that many films for 30-somethings. And these 30-something actors have got so much experience. My wife's done 40, 50 plays, dozens of films, tons of experience. Will get overlooked by someone coming out of drama school. What do you want? I mean, it's so I deliberately set my leads to be 30-somethings to go, you know what? I think the characters feel as though they could lose and gain more if they've lived more.
True.
And that to me just feels more real. You know, we talk about getting to 40 and midlife crisis and then changing life, you know, going off and getting some leathers and a motorbike and driving off to the beach, you know, stereotypes. And but you know what I mean? And my next film is I'm going to deliberately have them 30-somethings again, reminiscing about when they were 20, because there are so many brilliant actors out there, absolutely brilliant actors who just can't work.
But it's just, I think that's not the only thing, the only issue. The thing is that, I don't know if you agree, I don't know in the UK how it's happening, but here in Spain, for instance, most of the new projects that are being made, whether they are TV series for platforms, for national TV, or films in general, they are tailor-made to the young spectators, where we do have a lot of old people and 60, 70 plus, who watch TV, and there's no story about how they were when they were their 50s, and they're just watching these young kids doing all these things, and hey, it's cool, but who's going to tell my story?
Yeah.
Why can I not relate to, hey, oh yeah, I remember I used to play there, or that this is where I met my husband in this place, or that, or this is where we went for our marriage holiday, or our honeymoon and things like that. They don't relate to any of that because everything that is being shot now is for young people.
Yep. And it's a very narrow story as well, because they haven't lived, they haven't done anything. It's going to be related around school. It's going to be related around a very narrow viewpoint. It's going to be related to a few things that are happening in their lives, relationships, yada, 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 yada. It's a universal story. We've been there, done there. There have been 1,000 films made about it. I mean, my film's about nostalgia more than anything. It's about something that happened to me literally 30 years ago. But it's a universal story. At the older you get, the more you look back at what you did and how you were and how you felt. You said about when I was just reminiscing about that first time we wrote the song together, I literally was able to visualize myself back then and feel what it felt like. And I think as you get older, you try to cling back to that more. And I think those sort of films really do appeal. And both my next films are, again, for this kind of age, looking back. It's very nostalgic. It's very looking back.
Going to past, present, and do you think, because this is something that not only spectators, especially actors and filmmakers in general, do you think that platforms such as Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, etc., are the only future for our industry? Do you think they will be taking over our theaters?
Well, I think it's just what you just said about the fact that an awful lot of content is aimed at the youth. And I don't think, it's funny, I was talking to my my dad about this, and he was talking about I think we were talking about comedy. It was somebody relates. He was talking about comedy, how he didn't get the comedy of the 80s, the sort of very subversive punk. You have the Young Ones and all that sort of stuff that came out. And I went, well, Dad, it's no different from when you were in the 60s and 70s with Monty Python.
Yeah.
What you got to realize is that Monty Python was radical. It was completely subversive. You were a teenager then, and you saw that as anti-establishment kind of comedy, right? The punk, and that partly came out of that kind of revolutionary, the Beatles being very anti-establishment, and the Rolling Stones and all those bands that were just railing against it. And the 60s, I suppose I had to be there to really know what it was really about, but and I wasn't. But the 60s were very much about revolution and change of thought and freedom and so on. And the music and the comedy reflected that. And I said the 80s was very similar. It had just come out of the punk era of the late 70s, that sort of, which was fighting against kind of the government of the time here in the UK. And that brought a kind of punk sensibility. It brought a change in new romantic music and everybody wanting to be individual. So you had all these different musicals, and the synthesizer brought a revolution in music, and then that brought a revolution in comedy. So I said, really, it's just the same thing. And now I sit there and go, I don't understand the music of today, and I don't understand the comedy of today. But I think the music and the comedy and the art of a society is very much owned by the youth of society of the time. So it's easy for me to go, oh, the music is rubbish, but the kids at the moment don't think it is. And I think, well, the comedy, I don't understand it. Well, but the kids do. And really, they own the comedy. We talk about woke society. Well, if that is what the youth are framing their lives around at the moment, if that's how they're making sense of the world, we just played our guitars really loud. And had very brash humor. And my dad played the Beatles and listened to surreal Monty Python kind of comedy. Well, these kids are doing no different to what I did 30, 40 years ago. Just because I don't understand it now doesn't mean that it's not valid. So getting back to what you're saying is, Netflix are really, and the Amazons are really tapping into the zeitgeist, right? Their audience the people who have the most time to watch TV, listen to music, and so on, are the youth. You know, what was it? They say the youth is for the young, or something like that, or it's, no, the youth is wasted on the young, isn't it, or something like that. You have all this time, but you never know what to do with it, and you never appreciate it at the time. But I don't think it's going to be the death of it, because, you know, 3D cinema was going to be the death of cinema, and cinema was going to be the death of theatre. And I think we're just going through a phase which is slightly accelerated and probably concentrated more because of COVID, because we've had the cinemas shut for a year. The theatres have been shut for a year. So the platforms have managed to capitalize because they could still run in our homes. The fact that there's not been much new content made because we've all been stuck at home and not on film sets and theatres and so on is by the by. I don't know. Funny enough, I was talking to friends about theatre, how we have some brilliant theatres where I live, and I think they'll be dead in 20 years because they're not attracting the youth. They're still run by white middle-class people who are growing up. They own it. They put on plays done in the 60s and the 70s, or 300 years old if you look at Shakespeare, and they're plays that aren't relevant to the youth. They're environments that aren't relevant to the youth, and the youth aren't getting involved in directing and acting there. Once you have an aging audience that's slowly dying, you have a theatre community that's dying as it gets older, and you know, and if you don't replenish that with new energy and exciting directors and fresh new talent, those theatres are going to die. And that makes me feel really sad, because if it weren't for theatre, and I went to the theatre really, really late, 33 before I stepped into a theatre. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have had the career that I've had. So
yeah, but for instance, there's something that I understand is that when we talk about history, right, and we talk about history in the books for the kids in the school or in high school, history is history from the very beginning to nowadays. Nothing has been taken away and just burned or said, okay, we're going to forget about this part. But when we come to the film industry, at least I'm talking about Spain, it is not so easy to find theaters that will be playing, or that at least once a week will do classics, black and white, or, you know, the first colored films. I mean, we do have old people who would love to see all the films they used to see. I mean, you know, just Gary Cooper, all these people, and it was just classic. It disappeared. We act as if it never happened.
Although you can't find these on Netflix.
Well, that's the point. So why can't they be played in theaters? Right?
I totally agree with you. I mean, there's a building that is about just up the road. It's £1 million. I would love to buy it. I'd put all of my post-production upstairs. It's got a theatre stage, so I'd put on plays. And in the day, I'd bring a screen down.
Yeah.
And I'd put on old classics for all the pensioners and the old generation to come and just enjoy these black and white movies, because I love these movies.
Plus, how can the young generation understand film as it is today if they haven't watched the other films?
I suppose they watch it their own way through their TVs and their smartphones. But whether they would want to watch it is another matter. Are they interested in black and white films? I think the problem is that when I was in the early 80s, we didn't even have video. I didn't have an opportunity. You saw a film once in the cinema, and that was it. So you remembered it, and you remembered the experience. You could get hold of books. We didn't have the internet, so I couldn't go and Google things. You had to remember things. You remembered experiences. But the the sum of the available resources was quite small. I think kids today have the whole world at their fingertips. They can see just about every movie that's ever been done from scratch, and there are millions of them on Netflix. They can get access to every book that's ever written. Similarly, they can get access to every opinion on the planet, good and bad. I think if you were the youth of today, you'd be absolutely confused as to where to start.
Yeah, because there's too much information.
There's too much choice. There's too much. And I think it's not so much about why would they go and watch a film from 1940 if they can go and watch the latest 2021 film that's about their neighborhood in 2021, dealing with their real world problems. Because I think for all of the world getting bigger to them, they're actually more concentrated on what's happening right in front of them.
Yeah.
Because they're saturated by all this information. There's too much noise. So what you're finding is that instead of expanding their worlds, they're actually narrowing their worlds. Whereas for me, I would watch Back to the Future and it would feel like a different planet. Star Wars, I remember having to queue 2 hours around the block for the cinema because they only had one cinema. And they only had 200 people going into the cinema, and we were the 201st people, me and my dad. And we had to wait 2 hours for the movie to end, and then we went in. And when I sat there as a 7-year-old and watched this movie, I remember just crying because I couldn't comprehend it. It wasn't just out of this world. It was beyond my imagination. I couldn't understand how the spaceships were floating. I couldn't understand how lasers were there because lasers didn't exist, and I knew that. I couldn't understand. I just couldn't understand any of it. It was all big. When I saw the behind the scenes as a teenager, I guess you kind of think, well, okay, fine. But as a 7-year-old, the ability to be marveled and wondered is something my 7-year-old couldn't. At 7, they were just so used to the technology. They very little marvels people these days. And I think we've lost something as a result of it. I think as a person, I still try to be excited and marveled about things. And I think the only way I do that is by putting myself into new situations.
But don't you think that the young people, they are so used to seeing everything that nothing marvels them anymore? So don't you think that they are a real hard spectator to content, to make happy?
Yeah, I mean, I put on a film and I show them. They go, "Yeah, oh, it's okay."
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're there saying, "Oh my God!" I mean, if you
realize
how this is just.
Yeah, they do, but it's just like, but again, they're just oversaturated.
It's like talking about Star Wars. I mean, I remember when I saw Star Wars for the first time, and then watching Star Wars Rogue One or Star Trek, for instance, Star Trek and the Enterprise. I knew how it was made at that time, and knowing that everything. I mean, when people say, "Oh yeah, but you have this and you have this special effects," and I said, "Yeah, but." You don't have that creativity of having about 10 people creating this spaceship and it's hanging on the top of the ceiling and all this stuff. The rest that is done now, it's done digitally. It has nothing to do. And I said, it takes one person to do this. I mean, it's called VFX. I mean, you don't have to it just takes one person. Whereas in the other times, it was a small spaceship like this, but when you would see it in the film, it was humongous. It was just huge. I don't know what you said. The excitement of seeing this, saying, "Oh my God, can you imagine?" I mean, I would be thinking, when we get to 2000, something's going to happen, and something of this is going to happen. And no, nothing happened really, but still, you had that imagination that all that was going to happen. Whereas today, you say, "Oh yeah, whatever."
I remember as a child going, "How old am I going to be in the year 2000?"
Me too. I would count.
How old am I going to be, and how my life going to change, and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just think I'm just trying to think of the last time I was wowed. Right? There aren't that many films that have wowed me. I remember seeing a film, a Zemeckis film about the tightrope walker across the Twin Towers.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what it was called now. And the way it was shot, and the actor actually learnt to tightrope, so he did it for real. It wasn't an effect. And although they didn't, obviously the Twin Towers are gone now, and it was a true story about a Frenchman who decided he was going to shoot a catapult between the Twin Towers and actually go there and
you stopped breathing while he was doing it?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. It was just the way it was shot. And Zemeckis is an amazing director anyway. And you sweat and you just, I mean, it was amazing. A really amazing film. And I just thought, I knew it was CGI. I knew it was green screen. But what I definitely knew, and they didn't fake, was that he was tightroping. And the emotion and the tension in his body was enough to sell it to me.
Yeah.
Was just so that was one. I think the other time I was wowed, I hate 3D movies generally because I don't know whether it's my eyesight. I struggle with the glasses over my glasses, and without my glasses I can't see. But when Gravity came out, I missed the chance. I was filming or something, and they had one night only in 3D at my local cinema, and I thought, I'm going to go. It's Alfonso Cuarón, a huge fan of Children of Men. I'm going to go and see this film. And I was the only one, or there was only a couple of people in the cinema. And it was at the end of the film I realized why it was called Gravity. Because the film was done I mean, I love sci-fi, but it was done in such an amazing way with the 3D-ness, and that for the whole movie, not only did I realize I wasn't breathing or I was holding my breath, but I actually felt as though I was floating in space. And right at the end, I don't want to spoil it too much, but at the end, there's where the title's Gravity came up and the credits came up. And at the end of the credits, I decided to try and sit up. And because my body had been tricked into feeling as though it was weightless, that's what I was saying, I realized why it was called Gravity. Is because I became aware of gravity for the first time in my life. I literally felt 10 times heavier and I couldn't get out the seat. And I thought, you have just absolutely blown my mind, because I know how you're doing this as a filmmaker. I know what you're doing, but I got so sucked into the movie and the storytelling, I felt I was weightless. And then I felt gravity at the end of it.
But because you saw it in 3D, because I saw it without 3D, and that wasn't the same sensation I had.
Yeah, I guess so. So maybe it was a film that was designed for 3D.
Yeah.
But I think it was just the way it was structured and the way it was delivered and the pace and I was blown away by it. So I think it is still possible if you're clever enough to do these things. I mean, my movie, I'm not going to pull up any trees with my movie. It's not going to be anything as groundbreaking or anything like that. But what people tell me is that the script is completely unpredictable, and yet because the characters are real, they completely believe that the characters would do what they do. I really hate in a film where someone just does something because the plot needs them to do it. I'm going, surely you could have come up with a better way of doing it, whereby it actually meant something. The character had a reason to do it, not just because the plot required them to do it. Okay. And when we talk about all the drafts that I did, I wasn't just focusing on the character, I was focusing on the situations. Now, a lot of the events and situations were based on true events in my first tour. So obviously I had a certain grounding and a reality to them, even though they sound the most daft, stupid things ever. And people go, oh, that couldn't have happened. I went, but it really did. And I think where a lot of films go wrong is that they focus on plot and what the film needs to do in order to get it to the end, than whether they're asking themselves the question, does this make sense? Is this real?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of films for the youth are very much about plot. The Marvel films, I don't want to knock Marvel because they've made billions. They've created a whole industry in their own rights. They've made a lot of actors very wealthy. They put a lot of bums on seats in theatres and cinemas. That's all good for the industry, full stop. I don't particularly like the movies because I'm not a fan of CGI. I want to see actors interacting with actors in real spaces, but that's just my personal taste. I know virtually every child and teenager that I know love them. So I think that's a good thing, because at least you're keeping that generation excited about event cinema. But it is all plot driven. You know, a guy who I know, he says, "Oh, I've seen the latest Avengers," and I went, "Let me tell you exactly what the plot is," and I haven't even seen it. And I was able to go, you know, because they have all these characters and they have to shoot them. And I said, so and so will come in and have a 3-minute speech, then they'll have a fight, then they'll have another speech, and then they'll lose the first battle because it's important that the Avengers get them pushed back a little bit. And then 2 or 3 of them will have their own internal fights, and then they'll fall out and they'll go off in their own factions. And then they'll have to all come together and overcome all their adversaries and how they feel about each other and then win the battle. But they can't entirely win the battle because you need the baddie to just somehow survive so that you can bring out another movie. And they went, "Oh, fine, you won't need to see the movie." I mean, that's because it's all plot. It's every movie is exactly the same structure.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I just don't get surprised. There's no jeopardy. You know they're not going to die. You know that they're going to lose the battle but win the war, but not quite win the war. You know that they've all got to have their 3-minute speeches because all the actors are paid 50 million quid each, and they've all got to have their moment in the movie. And it's just like, I've just seen it again and again. There's no surprises. But kids have a short attention span because they're overloaded with information, and it works for them. Give me a 3-minute speech right now. Give me some action. Now, give me some speech. Now, give me some action. And it's like ADHD filmmaking, you know. And
that's what I was going to say. It seems like, you know, it's all the new generation. You know, like they have you know, lack of how you call it, TDAH.
ADHD.
ADHD, and they just need everything to go like this because otherwise they get bored.
They do get bored. I mean, we went to see Deadpool, and I liked the first one. We went to see the second one, and the moment it got to a point where I was just overloaded, and I was tired, and my brain just shut down, and I went to sleep for 2 minutes while there was a fight, and I woke up and I went, "Well, have I missed anything?" Because oh, they've just finished the fight that I went to sleep them watching, and it's just like, and then it carried on, and it's like, yeah, but you can't knock it. It works for them. I said, film, Netflix, Amazon, it's for them now. But all I can do is make films for me, and I'm trying to make films that appeal to everybody. But that's just me. I can only talk about what I'm trying to do.
Well, talking about what you're trying to do and your likes and dislikes, as a spectator, what are your favorite genres?
Oh, well, we talked about sci-fi. I think sci-fi because it can be out of this world, there is still opportunity to marvel and excite. In the same way that Star Wars did. I mean, I have to say the new Disney Star Wars, I loved Rogue One. I thought it was a very clever way of making a film, the Star Wars film. I loved very much the handheld, the battle thing. I loved The Force Awakens. It was, you know, we were queuing to get into there, and it was a packed cinema, and it was just like watching an old version of Star Wars because they had all the old things, and then they had the new characters. But then the 2 films that came after that, I think they were just awful. And I did remember saying to wife, I don't need to see another Star Wars movie again.
I'm more of a Trekkie than Star Wars.
Yeah, but But then this year we got hold of a Disney Plus account and we watched The Mandalorian. And I was like, wow. So, it's kind of, and that was the way they filmed it and some of the techniques, and they opened up the world a bit more and they got back into the lore of Star Wars, which is what George Lucas started off doing. So I think it all comes down to how sci-fi is approached. I mean, one of my favorite films was Silent Running, which came out in 1973 with Dewey, Louie, and Huey, the little robots. And it appealed to me because it has an ecological kind of thing, this whole idea that, the world's burning and he's up there with his, growing the last seeds and plants of Earth. And I don't know. I just think sci-fi gives you the opportunity to put the humans out there and challenge some of it. I mean, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Me too. Absolutely huge. I mean, if I move the camera, I've got memorabilia coming out of, and thankfully my wife's a huge Doctor Who fan as well, which we didn't know until we got together. And then we realized we had two of everything. But it's so I think genres like that, but I like cerebral, what I call cerebral kind of plays and films. The plays that I put on are ones that make people think. They have twists. They are unpredictable. I don't like horror, but I quite like psychological horror. I don't like gore. I don't like Marvel. I don't like CGI stuff. I just like something that's real. If I told you my favorite film was Children of Men, I love the way he positioned the United Kingdom where it could be going forward, and it feels as if we're getting very close to it. I've become quite attracted to TV, things like Handmaid's Tale, Queen's Gambit. These are the things that have really excited me because they've taken very strong characters and put them in unusual situations and told a different story. Well, maybe the same story, but in a different framing, in a different way that made it just interesting. There are too many, go on Netflix and there'll be 15 versions of the same thing. Because they had a hit with one, they'll make 14 more of them. And that's great. Some people love watching detective stuff. I'm happy to see one and be excited by one. And then I want to see a different genre, a different story. True. Generally, I'll watch most things, but I haven't got anything. No. It's more styles, really. I want to be surprised, excited.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and go forward, what would you tell your past you and your future you?
Oh, go to the theatre a bit sooner. Probably go in the theatre a bit more. I don't know, really. It's perhaps have a bit more confidence in yourself. I'm a very, it might not come across here. Maybe you've relaxed me, but I'm quite a shy person. I'm doing this really as a bit of self-media training for when I need it for my movie. It's working. It's working.
Well, that's the effect I have on people.
Yeah, that's good. I'll just have to have you as my media expert or something like that. I don't know. I just think perhaps have a bit more belief in yourself, because although I haven't achieved #1 hits or whatever, or I haven't achieved this or I haven't achieved this, I've achieved a lot. By pushing myself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I had belief in myself. I just wanted to challenge myself. Can I do it? Can I do it? Yeah, go and do it.
But that's your science.
Maybe that's the hypothesis. I set up the test. Now, can I do it? And then we get a set of results, and then it's like, now we can get to a conclusion. The conclusion is, yeah, you can do this. Go on, either do it again, repeat the experiment, or go and do another one. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe you found me out. Maybe I found myself out. Maybe this is good therapy.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those who want to start in this beautiful but uncertain industry?
Or have more confidence in yourself. I think a lot of people come into this with no confidence whatsoever. But realistically, have the broadest shoulders you've got. Particularly what we were saying about the audience is it's very, very critical. So even if you get to make something, there's going to be more negativity about it than positivity. If you even get there, I think you have a lot of pushback, a lot of rejection. I think part of the reason why I ended up making this movie myself was that I decided that if I was going to wait to do it, I'd be waiting forever. So I have this to people: don't wait, just create. Just create. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. Just go and do it. Right? If you're an actor and you can't get a play, just put on a one-man show.
Yeah.
Right? Just go and do it, because you never know who's going to be in that audience. If you want to make a film, just get a camera and get your friends, like I did. That's what we did with Hanging in There. I'd never made a film, and I made Hanging in There and worked out how not to make a film. And then from that, you take those opportunities and then you go and create the next one. We're only around for a certain amount of time.
True.
So let's make the best of it. I'd probably spend my whole life just anxiously trying to get all the things I want to do, tell all the stories I want to do, write all the music I want to write. So I think you have, in a sense, you have more opportunity and you have an easier opportunity, but by the same token, there's more of us doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of my music career, if we wanted to get a record deal, we had to go into a studio at a lot of cost, write some songs, put it on a tape, post these tapes to record companies that we found on the backs of our vinyl records, and then hope. And then when that didn't work, we printed more tapes and we got on a bus down to London for the first time in our lives. And we went and found the addresses of these studios and we knocked on the doors and we gave them the tape and they still ignored us. And then, and that's how we do it. Nowadays, you can just do it at home, put it on a computer, create an MP3 and email it, and they'll still ignore you. So I don't think it's any harder or easier. I think it's just different. But I think if you want it bad,
you have to go for it.
You just got to go for it and just keep going for it and don't take no for an answer. And if you, like me, get impatient, just go and do it yourself, because actually it's amazing how when I decided I wanted to be a go-to composer for theatre, it's amazing how many people then went, "Oh, I've heard you do that play. Can you come and do this one for me?" I never auditioned or pitched for a single play in 15 years. I literally had more offers than I could do, because you start the ball rolling.
True.
And I think I've got, I don't know, I just think that's the way to do it. You've just got to put yourself out there. If I was an actor, they say, "Well, I haven't got a show reel." Well, find somebody else, another actor, write something or find a piece, get someone with a camera and go, "You want to learn how to make a film? Film us too doing it. You learn something, we get a show reel."
True.
Everyone's won. Everybody has won. And part of what we do with me, Jeff, who wrote Hanging in There, and another friend, Matt Chamberlain, we created what was called the Snowball Kickers. And it's called the Snowball Kickers for a reason. Like, if you stand at the top of a hill in the snow and you get a pebble and you kick the pebble, it collects snow and then becomes a big, big snowball that rolls down the hill and it collects and accumulates more. Well, this is how we like to collaborate. We start the ball rolling and then we bring people in. And the more people we bring in, the bigger the project. And the more we can do, we become greater than some of the parts.
Yeah.
And then you find that idea that seems so impossible to do becomes so easy to do because you have so many people. And we created the Snowball Kickers as a way of us learning how to make films or whatever, but also how to bring up other people in who we could collaborate and we could all learn together. So we all make the mistakes together and we all learn something from it together. And then you build up a team that then learns through experience and becomes bigger and stronger and stronger. And I would say do something like that. Peter Jackson made his first film by getting his friends at weekends. It took him 4 years to make his first film. 4 years at weekends. Go out, earn some money, shoot another scene.
Yeah.
Friends were actors, they couldn't act, but he still made a classic film. It took him 4 years. I think these days people go, well, if I don't get that instant success, because they see these TV reality shows where they go on and these talent shows, if I don't get instant success, then I failed.
Yeah.
They're the exceptions. That's not the way of the world. The way of the world, all the best actors in the world, all the best musicians in the world, all the best composers, writers, directors, all started somewhere and didn't get instant success. And it was accumulated and it was grown, and you learn more and learn more and learn more and learn more. And it takes hard work and long-term commitment. So I guess we're coming back to what we're saying is that don't just give up at the first hurdle. Stick at it. Really think you've got to be passionate. I'm still passionate about this stuff. You can tell. But I think when I see kids, I can tell instantly the ones who could make it and the ones that can't. And the ones that can make it, it's not because I can see their talent, it's because I can see their passion. What does you say? La cura? Is it the heart?
Yeah.
You can feel it, right? And it's like you can feel it. And you go, you know what? You've got what it takes. And I think that's the best thing. Don't give up, but you've got to have passion. Without passion, you'll give up.
Well, we will all be looking very forward to see your film. And for being a shy person, we've been talking for 2 hours.
Wow, okay.
We have come to an end for now. We will be talking more with you when your film is released. Then we will have you back to tell us all the bits and pieces of the film.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So, Darren, it's been a pleasure sharing this afternoon with you at Tell Me Over Coffee and letting us know a little bit more about you. I also wish to thank everyone for being there, supporting us, supporting culture. Like I say, life without culture is very boring. And you can follow Darren's career on his social media that I will put as usual on the IGTV and the YouTube channel. And well, although I do know who my guest is going to be for next Wednesday, because now all of my interviews will be on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Spanish time, because I'm going to be quite busy too doing other things. So I can only take one interview per week. And although I do know who my guest is going to be next week, it's still going to be mysterious for everyone else. So just stay tuned and follow me in my social media, and you will know who the guest is. So take care. Please be responsible and respectful. And Darren, take care. I shall be hearing from you very soon. And thank you all.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. It's been wonderful, and I enjoyed the coffee, and we'll chat soon. So thank you.
We will. Thank you. Bye everyone.